This is the Criterion Creeps podcast. And tonight we're talking about Haine from 1995, directed by Matthew Kasovitz. And we are joined by a longtime guest of the show, Justin Peterson. Hello. This is more of a reintroduction for those YouTube people who are going to definitely love how we pronounce French words for the next 50 minutes. But we enjoying the classic sounds of Skype recording. But yeah, we'll get there.
Bonjour, homies.
There you go, homies. The tagline for this film: "How far you fall doesn't matter. It's how you land."
Is this a romantic comedy?
Oh damn, maybe it is. That's a new twist. Called Hate. The synopsis from Letterboxd. After a chaotic night of rioting in a marginal suburb of Paris, three young friends, Vince, Hubert, and Said, wander around unoccupied, waiting for news about the state of health of a mutual friend who has been seriously injured when confronting the police. So, Justin, what made you want to come and join us to discuss Haine this night?
Now, Jared, I'm glad you asked me that question because the last couple times I've come on here, let's see, I hate watched Criterion, which I'm sure people didn't like. Had never seen Diary of a Country Priest before. Had never seen Canterbury Tale before. But this Haine is a banger for me. It's one of the handful of movies I would say it was a Criterion I knew nothing about. Jumped into it and was totally floored by it, especially the ending. Found out about it from that old Criterion closet video, Barry Jenkins talking about how him and his mates were watching it on repeat back in the day. Really enjoyed it. So I wanted to check it out for myself. I thought it was going to be some kind of a crime film. And so was very surprised how it is about prejudice between hatred between, street guys and the cops. So pretty intense. So let's see where we settle on this.
Sure thing. RJ, why did you want to start this podcast to talk about Haine 6 years ago?
Well, I'll tell you, Jared. There was a guy I worked with one time. He was doing his PhD when I was doing my master's, and partway through his degree, he changed his name. So he was going by one name, and then he changed his name. And then one time he said, "You like Criterion movies, eh?" And I went, "Yeah, I do." He said, "You ever seen Haine?" And I said, "No, I haven't. What's that about?" And he went, "French people." And I went, "Okay, cool. I'll definitely check out French people one day."
And look at you now.
Look at me now, man. I did French until grade 6. Jay Peterson's got the Haine physical copy there, which is very nice. But yeah, I took grade 6 French. I'm pretty sure I got an A in that, Jarrett, like a 90% or above. No big deal.
You could really rip out that oui.
Oh, Paris. That kind of stuff. Yeah, Haine is a movie I had heard about before we even started this podcast. So I was always like, man, when's Haine Day? Am I right, boys? Just always been waiting. And I know, Jarrett's a huge fan of Ocean's 12, so he's a real big Vincent Cassel guy. So he's just been waiting for it, which I'm excited for him. You know what I mean? I'm excited for you, Jarrett.
For me.
Yes, for you, which is cool. So we got that going for us, which is good.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fun fact for me was the fact that, being blown away by the movie, I wanted to share it a little bit. So I was like, hey, my buddy Joey, you should check this out. And that led to us, eventually come together for a podcast. And we did this episode, and he wasn't too as keen on it as I was. So that was kind of a letdown. So hopefully I can... we'll see if the like-mindedness is here. What say you, Jared?
So this is a movie that has just kind of been vaguely on my radar for years. I've never had anyone go out of their way to recommend it to me before. It pops up on kind of like best of lists, I guess, of the 90s, but usually it's kind of further down because the 90s is so packed with great movies. There's nothing that really jumped out at me about like just like seeing the poster. So, like usually it's like these intense eyes of like a man and like Haine. It's like I don't know what that even means, right? Like you read that and you're like, I'm not a French speaker. It looks very serious. Looks very hard-edged, unforgiving, gritty, and once in a while I'd read I don't even know if I knew the synopsis actually, honestly, before today, other than I'm like, oh, it's about French youths. And I don't know. There's a couple other movies like that. A friend of mine, he was living here in Creepsville. He was actually from Marseille originally, and he would always like talk about like a handful of like French films that he just loved. And this one got brought up all the time. And he just said, "Oh, you have to watch it." He would tell me we called him Frenchie. That's what he told us to call him. But I think he gave me at some point like a burnt DVD-R of this because he was like, "Oh, you have to watch it. You have to watch this." There's like the other movie too, "Skip Up My Heart" movie, whatever that's actually its full title is. Does that ring a bell for anybody? As I look this up.
I think you're thinking of something else.
The beat that my heart skipped. I think it's called like, but there's a remake of it from like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
It was like this and La Haine that he would talk about all the time.
Well, who hasn't been there, you know?
Who hasn't been?
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah. Anyway, yeah, I was kind of going into this movie mostly blind. I knew that several months ago, even like maybe a couple of years ago, I think Justin had, when he'd been on the show previously, been talking about this movie specifically, being like, "Oh, I've got to come on for that one." For like, I don't know, yeah, it's like right, it's like been like maybe a few years that you kind of had called your shot that the next time you joined us, it was going to be for this. So here we are, finally. So
I think it might have been after you said Rain was filled, and that was the next one after Fear and Loathing, and that was this one. So.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, what's this movie about? Well, it's sort of a day in the life. It's sort of just like a snapshot of a day, I guess, of a few young French men. One being Vincent Cazel, who probably is the most famous actor in this, I think, by quite a bit. He's in lots of stuff. Everybody knows him. One of my favorites is actually the French film Shaitan, Sheita.
Shitten?
Yeah, Shitten, RJ.
Oh, okay.
Irreversible, right?
And everyone knows all Irreversible, Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
But a big star that he is. So he's here. He's got real short hair. He shaved his head. He's really lean. He's really showcasing that body of his. He lives at home, kind of a multi-generational house with his grandmother. And he's friends. It's like they're all kind of like, I guess you'd call like probably at best working poor class. Like large, like I guess you like, not sure if you call it how it would work for like in terms of like immigrants, if they're like recent or like kind of first gen, second gen. Or if they had moved there, but it's like this is like something that I've only really ever experienced from. I don't know if either of you are familiar with the music video "Stress" by Justice.
Mm-mm.
That I feel for me is like everything I need out of La Haine I get from the music video "Stress" by Justice. Which isn't anything to say about the movie or anything like that, but that music video is awesome, and it taps into the exact same feelings, I think, but it is far more direct and kind of amazingly terrifying about just like, you know, relationships of power against the powerless, and, you know, those outbursts, I guess, of like taking things back. And the music video itself has this like real, like, because I find La Haine actually struggles with what to do. And there's like kind of like, oh, you know, there's those attempts to do it, but it's very grounded, I guess, in what people would be struggling with when you're basically feeling oppressed and being targeted. And there's like sort of like a come back and forth in terms of like, you know, people escalate and do stupid shit, which then sets off another stupid thing. And then it gets even worse. Justice music video "Stress." It is just like, nah, fuck that. There's no in between. It's just like, I don't know, unrelenting. It's awesome. It's one of those great music videos. Anyways, so the movie opens up with this montage of a riot that had occurred in a borough of Paris, and you're just kind of, it's just like mayhem. You're kind of being kind of, there's music kind of set over top of it, and it's just
reggae, right?
Yes, yes, reggae, and basically by the end of it, you kind of get this sense that it's like, oh, so there's this young man who has been put into the hospital in this as a result of this collision between rioters / protesters versus the police, and this is sort of the immediate fallout of that as these men who I will know, I guess they are all from immigrant families, as I kind of said earlier, trying to figure out what to do about that. There's a gym that has burnt down, which is kind of where Hubert, Afro-French boxer, and also struggling with, I guess, like a heroin addiction.
A what, Jarrett?
Heroin.
Holy cow. Okay.
I know. You know what? Because part of me, when I saw that, I'm like, man, that's 90s movies for you. That is in 90s movies, heroin. That is I've seen so many movies depicting this. Like, your Train Spottings, Pulp Fiction, Jumanji, especially.
Yeah, Run Lola Run, classic 90s.
But yeah, that kind of it was the drug of choice at that point in time.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then you have Saeed, who is what do they say here? North African Muslim, and they've all come together. The Jewish guy, the black guy, and the Muslim. They're all friends. They all have something in common because they're under the same sort of struggle. And of course, there's like kind of like the fallout. The police are after. They're trying to like quell the unrest that's happening in the community.
Which is basically it's a project, right? Or in the projects.
Well, yeah, it's basically just kind of like, well, that's where people are left to do what they're due. They should stay in their quarter, and we're not going to put a lot of resources into there other than police resources, and then wonder why are there problems. People are kind of left on their own. Hubert is kind of like living with his mom, kind of like taking care of her, and he, of course, is also selling drugs to be able to afford, baby formula and like the essentials. Vince in the riot found a revolver, big old gun, which again, like, it's one of those things where I'd be curious, like in Europe, I'm not sure how readily available handguns are, or if this is like one of those things where it's like, whoa, having this is like actually kind of significant of sort of like cops and they're criminals if these aren't just floating around willy-nilly. But I'm not familiar with the gun laws in France, but there seems to be kind of like a lot of risk around this, where it's like, whoa, you shouldn't have that, because bad things happen once you produce a gun. That gives the police basically incentive to just be able, they can just kill you. But you know what? Maybe they'll do that anyway, as we find out in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why not?
What's that?
I said, why not?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, the police, I mean, they have absolute authority. What's the problem?
What's the problem? No. Well, it all depends on what happens when they get you, when they pick you up, and they show you how to. They teach people, this is how you torture a guy. This is how you make sure you don't leave a mark.
But Jared, I'm a white hetero Christian. Surely I'm okay. Surely. Yeah. Anyways.
Surely.
Oh, yeah?
So yeah, like they kind of like are like, so it's basically, the movie is like them drifting through the suburbs, trying to discover what to do in the fallout of this and the remnants of this most recent riot. Some of the scenes you see, it's been that whole week since I've watched this. It's keeping the movie a little foggy. Not gonna lie. They go visit their friend in the hospital. That's a mistake. That's not allowed to happen. And then you find out that there is a police officer sympathetic to this struggle here. In terms of just like not wanting to be an asshole. He's not just like another jerk cop, but he's got to help him out. But he knows these guys, they're always going to be in and out of trouble. And this is sort of like that negotiation going on between police and I guess like I don't know, people on the street that are probably selling drugs here and there out of desperation, not because they necessarily want to become hardened full-time criminals or necessarily endangering the lives of innocents. Mostly they're targeting one another. But at the same time, then the police also take some advantage of the fact that they kind of have this unchecked power. And they kind of wonder, why are we in this crazy situation that's only escalated as, you know, I don't know. You walk back a step and you go, oh, there's like not a lot of resources being deployed into these communities to help offset the desperation that is happening here. Instead, we're just going to add more police to make people feel good about themselves and make them feel safe. But actually, in fact, it just adds fuel to the fire in terms of like what's happening. But without offering anything, way of real solutions, because it's just easy to be like, oh, go down there and handle it, boys.
Yeah. I mean,
could be. There's a scene in a bathroom that I knew immediately. I'm like, oh man, this has got some real screenshot capabilities here. There's a lot of talk of shit going on, and I can just hear RJ just clicking away, snapshotting away.
And what do you know, Jer? Well, I mean, you can't snapshot on Criterion Channel anymore, you know, copyrights and stuff like that. But I found a way. Life finds a way. Jeff Goldblum, Jurassic Park. So I made it happen. I made it happen is the point. So yeah, there was a lot of good shit talk. There's a lot of fart talk also. Mm-hmm. So there was and there was also a lot of hot dog talk, which no one's mentioned yet, but I was really on board with that too. All the talk about hot dogs. I like a hot dog. I don't know about you boys. Mm-hmm. So it's just my opinion.
So what's that guy in the restroom coming out talking about having a good shit? He starts telling this story, and this is like some of that, like, again, felt like patented 90s cinema where you kind of have this kind of quirky scene, and it's always like it's got to be set in a bathroom. And you're left to puzzle. What does it all mean? Or the characters aren't smart enough to figure out what's happening here. It's a story about a man refusing to pee in public.
Mm-hmm. Well, he comes out and says when he emerges, he says nothing like a good shit.
Yeah.
And then you go, all right. You say, I'm on board for wherever this journey is going to take us. And then yeah, he tells a story. I can't remember what it's about though.
He goes to a different restroom, and then when he tries to catch up with the train, he ends up getting frozen to death. Moral of the story, maybe you shouldn't be so hung up on your little problems when back out in Russia, couldn't even take a shit without dying. So
yeah, I mean, I've been there. Mm-hmm. Every time I go down, it feels like the last. Anyways.
So another, like, I didn't realize that this particular trope went back to La Haine, because this movie predates Boogie Nights, but you gotta have a scene in your movie where your characters go to a drug dealer's house and violence is being threatened because what was it? I can't remember the name of the guy. It was a drug dealer, and you're like, there's this tension to it because everyone seems a little bit unhinged, a little coked out, and of course that's what happens. We get some Russian roulette. Another classic of cinema. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, again, it's like it's just we're kind of getting these little snapshots of kind of the underworld and the dealings that these characters have. So they're not like good people necessarily. They're kind of like, well, they have brushes with it. They're complex characters. But it's like they have everyone has their struggles. But then of course you kind of get put on their side again when they're being sadistically tortured by the police, and you go, oh well, I don't think they've done anything quite to deserve this.
Mm-hmm.
No. They go to
He's
an
got
art.
easy, got it easy that time. He went to the old cinema, chilling out.
Yeah, and then an art gallery as well, where they start macking, and this does not go very well. They get tossed out. They try stealing a car. This kind of random drunk guy's like really amused by this. It might even be his car. Who knows? And then the police roll up, and there's an escape, and this guy helps him out because he's a good guy. They find out that the friend of theirs from who was left in the ICU, beaten by the cops, he's died, and this of course sets everything down a darker turn. And then what kind of happens after that? After they find out that Abdel's dead?
Well, life happens, Jarrett.
Life happens.
Skinheads.
Yeah. They're encountered by the skinheads, and they get separated for a bit, and then they meet back up, and they get one of them. They get him. They grab him. And then they go, okay, here's your chance. You got a gun? Kill this dude.
Yeah, this whole time, Vince has been saying, hey, if our friend dies, we're going to take a cop's life in return. And so Hubert's like, well, this is even worse than a cop. Do your thing. And Stunt got the gonads to do it, does he?
Mm-hmm. He gets a little scared.
Yeah.
The human thing.
And then, they're kind of walking along, and then they encounter some more cops, and then that's where things kind of finish up.
Yeah, well, kind of finish up like the next morning. So we kind of like come full circle in terms of the day. And there's like there's altercations, and there's like harassment, and one thing leads to another, and a gun accidentally goes off from the police officer and shoots and kills Vince. This is, of course, was Hubert, who's walking away, who now is in possession of the gun, the missing gun from the riot the night before, and he strolls over and produces the gun, and the movie kind of ends on this kind of again very 1990s cinema beat, very dramatic beat of these two forces of, I guess, kind of like social unrest, racial prejudice, class oppression, and the police with guns foisted upon one another, and the zoom in on Saeed's face, and we hear a gunshot go off, and then the film ends, and that is the end of the film. That's the state. What's the statement of this film? What is its conclusion? It seems to be nothing great. It's like, nope, it's not getting any better, folks. And I got to say, like, my little knowledge of, like, I don't know,
France,
of Paris, of Europe and stuff like that. It seems like they're basically in the exact same place in a lot of ways that they were in 1995 as they are today. Like nothing's been solved. But it's just like, like this. There's these moments. I think just like God, like what, like a month or so ago, I think I saw it was like maybe it was like I don't know, Muslim man was shot and killed, and then there was an accompanying riot that followed suit, and it's just like, oh, here we go. Like it's just like fuck. Like, so I think that's a curious thing. Of like, not curious, it's a shitty thing. It sucks.
Curious?
It's like nothing's better. It's pretty much, this is happening. No one's figured out anything to make it better or solve it. Is it solvable? I don't know. There's got to be some other. Maybe everything that's being tried isn't working too great. Maybe that's something. But I gotta give it to this Haine movie. The word that kept coming to my mind watching this was creamy. The filmmaking of this movie is very creamy. It's so smooth. It's so slick. I couldn't tell you why this movie is shot in black and white. exactly.
It's about a metaphor.
I know, but this is when I started watching, I went, oh shit, I get to bust out the novelty black and white tag. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think about it, even though every time I see the poster, it's in black and white. But I'm like, well, that's just a stylization. But it's like, nope, this movie's black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, this movie probably would look, because usually like when you make your movie black and white, you're like after the fact, especially if you're like kind of working with like a smaller budget, it's kind of like to hide something. Like it's like maybe you didn't have like the best film stock, or maybe that, I mean, here I think it is intentional. You're going for an aesthetic. You're looking for a grit that's offered for a metaphor, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's like one of those things where it adds to it because it's a choice. It's an intentional choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure this movie was indeed. I'm assuming it was actually shot in.
It was shot in color.
It was shot in color.
Yeah, Matthew Cassavetes. I listened to the commentary, and basically the reason he kept it in black and white was because there's no good way to make the projects look good in color. So having that black and white aesthetic instantly just kind of made it all work.
So it was practical.
And actually, they were prepared. If this bombed at the box office, they were prepared to actually re-release it in color.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I like how honest they are about it. Because sometimes I feel that contemporary filmmaking would lie to us about why they made things in black and white. I'm not pointing fingers at any particular Netflix film or anything like that, but I like that there's like it's refreshing to hear like them saying, yeah, I mean, it looks good in black and white. We tried it, and if it failed, we'll just put it out in color. Like, oh shit, thank you. It's appreciated. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about La Haine, honestly, though, as like a movie. I'm not sure if it's like I'm coming late to this movie, because I feel like if I'd seen this like closer to when it came out, in the vicinity of like even like 10 years, I would have been like, holy fuck, this is what movie making is capable of. This is amazing.
What about Kang?
Well, you know, we're gonna wait till the quantum verse comes out.
Sure. Okay.
But so like watching it now, because what are we at now? 25. Damn, it's actually kind of nuts that this movie's soon to be 30 years old. It's actually real depressing. Like, yeah, we're 28 years old. That so much of this seems to have been absorbed by everything, and I don't know, for me, if there's anything in this where I'm like, yeah, that's La Haine. Because like the thing I kept saying watching this now is I'm like, oh, feels very much like exactly the type of movie that would have been made in the 1990s, which isn't a slag or anything like that. I think it's like, oh yeah, no, this is Cassavetes is definitely making this movie extremely well and handling the subject matter that I don't know how much movie making there is around this, or even for 1995, how much there was, or if it was actually pretty like, I'm not sure if this was an obvious thing to be talking about. Like we were, an hour ago, we were talking about Oscar bait. Like this movie doesn't feel like that, but I feel like so many movies have come kind of along, and I imagine that this movie is like kind of like the cornerstone of influence for that. But then you have like crime movies that like kind of touch on this, but then they attach like a crime story to it, like City of God. I feel like that movie kind of is more what La Haine kind of inspired in some ways, but I could be completely wrong about that too. But I don't know.
It's an interesting thing I heard in the commentary where he was kind of ragging on how like the new wave films, I mean, aren't really getting in touch with French culture, just two people arguing in a room. So he was much more inspired by like the Spike Lees of the world and so forth. And I mean, would you call this the French do the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I think that fits. You definitely could. Yeah. Why not? It seems
different goals since I've seen Do the Right Thing, but yeah, similar and definitely approach, and those zooms up to the faces and stuff, very Spike Lee-esque. So
yeah, I mean, I just even equate all that with sort of like not indie, but kind of your more bolder filmmakers who are wanting to make like these punchier, like this 90s aesthetic that we've gone so far away from. Movies just don't look like this at all anymore. And it's kind of a sad thing because even old Thelma and Louise, the grandiose vision of like a Ridley Scott in the 90s with those big widescreen cameras, gone. We're left with muddy Netflix looking movies. But who knows? 15 years from now, I'm sure that we'll look back and go, man, movies look so great like on Netflix. I don't know that's going to happen. I really don't. I feel like people are going to like Roger Deakins, but people like 90s Roger Deakins too. And now we have modern Roger Deakins. I don't know if I don't think he's as good, or the movies he's making aren't as nice looking to me. Digital man, I don't know. So I was wondering though, it's like whatever happened to Matthew Kasovitz, because there's this movie is his feather in his cap, but the rest of his oeuvre, I'm not so sure about. There was that Crimson Rivers movie, which I feel like was all over the Canadian market. I'm not sure if this had some French Canadian funding, because this movie, man, every time you went to a video store, this was in bins everywhere. And then I've never seen it. I don't know. I don't care about Jean Reno, and it's got Vincent Cassel as well. I never really nothing about this jumped out at me, but everybody knows and loves Gothica, right?
Who doesn't?
Everyone loves Gothica. It's all part of that that French extreme horror, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And then there was, of course, Babylon AD. Everyone loves Babylon AD, starring Vin Diesel. Remember Babylon AD? Nobody remembers it. His last movie was 2011, and
Wow.
yeah,
Of this year, 2011.
Yeah, this year, 2011.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not too bad.
Not too bad. So I don't know. It's kind of like, oh, this is his movie. This was his like movie that he got to make. That's kind of like the one that I'm assuming most people are going to probably talk about still. But yeah, anyway, I'm like, yeah, this movie's good. It's obviously like super nice looking. That's a nice break from some of the movies that we watch, which are kind of like, oh, another 1960s Japanese movie, huh? Sometimes too much. So watching this, it's like, it feels very alive. Like it just feels like very contemporary and an easy movie to watch for sure. But I'll hand it off to Justin right now. Tell me about La Haine and your love for it. And on this rewatch, does the love remain?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm glad you preferenced that, because that is actually how I'm going to lead into this. Yeah, the first two times I saw it, quite blown away. But, whenever you know a movie, and I even talked about this on one of my podcasts, so I definitely knew the beats. So actually knowing how things were going to fall into place kind of diminished the end a little bit. Good, but you can kind of see the seams of the filmmaking, and you never want that. You want to be immersed in the experience. So like I said, I listened to the Matt Kasovitz commentary. He was kind of complaining about the new wave and so forth. And so he wanted this more down to earth story. I think he was inspired to make this after somebody got killed in a riot. Yep. One of the interesting things in the commentary was like how in France, writing is all a part of their culture. I mean, ever since the French Revolution, they've always been about, marching against injustice. So it's very much commonplace for writing. I thought that was an interesting tidbit there. So did you hear about the Jodie Foster connection? How, she's French and she saw it and she helped promote it in America and spread it around?
No, I had not.
Okay. Yep. That's one of those true facts. Let's see here. All right. The thing that really I think, sunk its claws into me early on, I'm a pop culture lover, 90s. I mean, we go into Vince's room. We got that Bret Hart Canadian poster there. I definitely related to that as a 90s kid. Vince is very much inspired by the tough guys of the of American culture. I mean, all these guys are essentially. I mean, you have the taxi driver scene where he's staring in the mirror doing his thing. We see the world is yours, the popular reference from Scarface. Hubert has a Bob Marley poster. He has the shot of the Olympians holding up the black glove in defiance. Yeah, the Muhammad Ali. So yeah, a lot of good throughout the years, prejudicial moments of different heroes of the movement, equal rights.
Okay, here's something to throw because that's actually a really. I'm glad you mentioned that. Is what's changed in 30 years? Like, what are the posters that people have? Like, if you have posters on your wall, what do you have on your wall? Because, like, honestly, it's like I feel. Well, so that
Che Guevara.
You had 4 years. Well, Che Guevara is like, I think that's like kind of out of vogue now. It definitely was like in the early 2000s, but you don't see those. Like, so at work, they have a poster sale all the time for the kids on campus, and I don't see the Shays. I see Sopranos posters. But you still see Taxi Driver, but man, oh man, it's like, but all that stuff, like, it's like, oh, we're 30 years later, and those are still the same kind of reference points in a lot of ways for, probably for this like social class. But what we'd have like the Joker thrown into that now, like that's it's one of those things.
So Jarrett, when I lived in the States and lived in the dorm, I had 3 posters. I had a Fear and Loathing poster.
Yep.
And 2 Malcolm X posters.
There you go.
Really?
2 Malcolm X ones.
Choice.
And that's what it was.
What did they show? What they have on them?
One of them was
It
where
is.
he it's by any means necessary. It was that was one of them. And
what did that mean to you as a young boy, as a white hetero boy in Colorado?
I mean, to be honest, if you're gonna be the white kid with the Malcolm X poster, there's no better place than Colorado. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just, at the time I was 18, I was just like, man, I feel this right now, dude.
By any means. That's like vaguely threatening, RJ, coming.
Well,
on the way home from Scouts, I watched the episode of The Simpsons where Homer, where they shoot the cannonballs into Homer's belly, and he's walking around with the reggae thing, and he's just like, "Why can't I be cool anymore?" So it's very apropos that now we're getting into this.
Yeah, that's me, but that's okay. Yeah. I just thought I'd tell you about my posters. Right now, I have a Data poster, and that's it.
Yeah, Bret Hart was big in France. That is
the Hitman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The Hitman.
The Hitman.
They like the pink.
Yeah.
No.
All right. What about the Heartbreak Kid?
One interesting thing.
The Heartbreak Kid.
That was my guy. That was when wrestling died for me. Is when Shawn Michaels lost to I guess it was Stone Cold or something, and was a different when they passing of the torch.
Yeah, well, that was after he lost his smile, after he didn't want to wrestle anymore, and then he came back, and then but so he got all messed up, and then he came back like 8 years later and continued wrestling incredibly well. Because it turns out you hit your stride sometimes in your 30s. That's when those guys start busting their ass and having real good matches. But yeah, Shawn Michaels is awesome. Bret Hart's awesome. They're all good. I like them all. But I think when I played Royal Rumble for the Super Nintendo, I was Shawn Michaels all the time. I love that, his super kick. Sweet
button mashing where they'd grapple and you had the little progress bar.
Sweet chin music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, baby.
British Bulldog.
So LaHaine.
So who do you think's the main character in this movie?
Hate.
Whoa. Damn.
It's a metaphor.
It's the gun.
Yeah, the gun.
I mean, looking at like the poster and stuff, you'd think it's Vince, but I think at heart, you really get most of Hubert's story. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And he has the classic line, hatred breeds hate, which is definitely the theme here. One of the things I was going to note, I noticed on this thing is I forget whose department they're in. It might be Vince's, but like they're stacked with all kinds of audio receivers. So they must have pulled off some big heist to have all this merchandise. So yeah, I think one of the main things that settled in me this time is, these are our guys, these are our protagonists, but they're not really good dudes. I mean, they're stealing all this audio equipment. There's a part where like the French media comes and is like filming them and like maybe wants to talk to them about the riots, and they're like, "Fuck you, get out of here,"
I'd
So
be the
yeah,
same,
they are
though.
not willing to play ball. Yeah, but at the same, how are you going to make things better for yourself if you're not willing to reach out to the other side? So I think the hate breeds hate. I mean, you have the stubborn cops, and then you have the stubborn guys in the projects, and it's just going to clash until something else can happen. It's always going to land that bad way.
I guess I kind of view that cynicism though from like the lead characters, from that, like there's been a lot of like, it's bullshit. Like now the media wants to come and talk to you, and they're going to show up with cameras in your face. It's like, my friend's like in the hospital, and it's like, oh, you want to get some sound clips. Like, I guess like at some point you kind of stop buying the line that anyone's trying to help you, and all you're kind of left is with your nihilism, and kind of like, oh, we're down here on our own, and going to figure it out. And when people kind of
Us against the world. The world's ours.
And it feeds itself, right? And it's just like, yeah, you wind up in this situation of like, well, it's never going to get better, and everything's terrible. It's a real RJ story.
Well, I mean, that depends on how you look at it, man. Do you know about Kang?
Kang? I know about Hubert though, who is I think the argument would be, because like his arc, I guess, because you do spend the most time with Vince, I think. And I think that his placement in there is important too, right? Because I guess like for making this like for the audiences, like he's your he's your Caucasian character, but he's also sort of an outsider because he's also Jewish, which
he's also the most unlikable just because he's kind of an asshole,
right? And they kind of can amp him up, but it's like, so he kind of fits in with this group, this sort of cosmopolitan band of characters, and you sort of get like kind of like a slice of each group, and he's the one, and it's like he's the one that's definitely, I mean, again, but it's also the actor too. It's definitely like, he's the one who becomes like the movie star of the group. I mean, I'm not sure the other actors might be as well, but I know I've seen Vincent Cassel in lots of stuff, and
like Ocean's 12.
Like Ocean's 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's see here. What else is Hubert Kundi been in? The Constant Gardener. He's in there. Something called Gangsterdam.
Ooh.
And then Saeed
any
Tugmouth.
heist movies?
I'm not sure. They're all French. Possible. Okay, and then so Saeed Tugmouth, what's he been in? I saw Three Kings. Everyone remembers Three Kings. He's been in lots of movies. Good Thief, the Neil Jordan one, which I don't remember anything of. He showed up in an episode of The West Wing. Oh, he's in I Heart Huckabee, so he was a real David O. Russell guy a little bit here and there. And then see, what else do I recognize from movies? No, he's been in some stuff. Oh fuck, he's in G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra.
As Cobra?
Yeah, he was in 4 episodes of Lost. He's Caesar. Don't know.
Cool.
No, yeah, okay. So this guy definitely, I'll take that back. Saeed Tugmouth was in quite a bit of work, but Vincent Cassel is definitely like the star that you see the most.
Mainline name.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see this international film, because I mean we've seen these films from United States. It mostly is about the Black community, dealing with these kind of prejudices. So it's kind of an interesting, broader scope to see this from an international level with a variety of kinds of immigrants dealing with this kind of oppression. So, any thoughts on that? I mean, that universal relatability, I'm not sure. I don't want to obviously diminish. I mean, the impact, obviously a white male definitely don't feel the impact of prejudice nearly as much as minority communities. But, I just, had a little bit more connection with this, because we do get to see how that impacts people on a little bit of a wider scope.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, this is a film that demonstrates the effects of power and race on people, and I mean, it's not unique to any one place, sadly, in the world. So, yeah, no, I mean, that's sort of but this movie has like the grim viewpoint, which sadly continues on, and it seems like, if you told me La Haine was made in 2005, 2015, why wouldn't you believe them? There's just no cell phones. Like, that's about it, right? There's no smartphones. For the most part,
and there's even that scene where he's like in a convenience store and he's like throwing racial slurs at the little Asian guy working there. So it's pretty much kind of coming from all sides, unfortunately. You get some good snapshots of what hip hop culture. You get the whole digression into the break dancing, which is, always cool to see up on the big screen. I did notice the part this time where they were talking about the Paris cops being more laid back. Did you kind of read any like after hours into this movie where like you have this guy that's stuck in this situation that he can't escape from? And obviously this one's a lot less, comedy of errors than After Hours, but you still have this idea of being stuck. And from the commentary, Cassavetes was saying, yeah, that's part of the idea of the film is, at every turn, these guys trying to get out of the projects, they're just met head on with a cop, so they can't escape. And then the same thing happens whenever they go uptown.
Yeah. I definitely would say no. I didn't get like that because I kind of put that into like the Into the Night kind of subcategory. And while I think this movie has that, because it does take place over the course of a night, I didn't get that kind of like, because that's usually sort of like a floating outsider that kind of finds themselves in this like worst case scenario. But this is them in their home, and so I don't think they felt like out of sorts. They just kind of like, I don't know, they're trying to come to a conclusion, I guess. Like, it's very direct, and like there is like those kind of crossovers maybe that I think you're thinking of though too. But I would say I find that like it's, unless you're talking about like Into the Night with Jeff Goldblum or something like that, or like After Hours, which is like one of the best. And there's like, it's actually one of my favorite little genres that I can't think of another one off the top of my head. Into the Night subgenre, and so there's gonna be a list of them. Not the TV series Into the Night. Damn. This is more of a letterbox question because I definitely know people have written these types of things. But usually there's kind of like a humor, I guess, to that, where this is not at all.
One fun connection I saw was I had actually remembered the train scene a little later. Train meaning the guy talking about the incident out in Russia or whatever. And not long after that, you see them missing the train because they were held up due to being hassled by the cops. So then at that moment they're stuck.
Gotcha. Right. Oh, the movie I'm thinking of, Something Wild, with Jeff Daniels, Melanie Griffith, Ray Liotta. Yeah, and even like Blue Velvet kind of has that kind of Into the Night, but there's also more like stylized. Dazed and Confused has a bit of that, but it's more like an overnight thing. But again, then you start just turning into like, or actually, I'm just looking at a list. How about Go from 1999? Remember?
Is that anything like Run Lola Run?
Not, yeah, just like it. It's about going fast and moving, running.
Like the Sonic movie?
Like the Sonic movie.
He likes to go faster, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He can really move.
Yeah, I'm just checking. Yeah.
I want to mention the art gallery scene again, how they show up there and they're basically total assholes to all those folks. So you do have these small unlikable moments from them, which is kind of makes it a little bit more nuanced. We haven't talked about the set piece yet where they're talking about this guy coming down an escalator, and Hubert immediately stereotypes him as this like conservative old man who is just gonna kind of keep to himself, look down, not look around, but he's going to use his vote in order to kind of work against, their cause. So that was kind of this. some interesting things to read in there, and then he like marks them as a racist afterwards. So kind of what the nature of being called a racist is in that moment. Any takeaway? Do you remember the escalator scene?
Yeah. I was just my mind got kind of hung up on the art gallery scene because I was thinking about I don't know if Justin, have you gone to many art openings in your day?
Never an opening, but
Okay.
galleries in general
Sure.
are fun to attend.
So openings are an interesting thing because it attracts like the kind of the I guess you call it the plugged in people, the people who like want to set out to be cultured and also seem to have solutions and grandiose ideas and are probably would fancy themselves as sort of positioned to be like we were the ones who want to help. We're not the problem. So I found it like when I was watching that scene, I've been to these art openings before, and I've kind of witnessed what happens when you can see that there's someone that doesn't quite fit with the rest of the like makeup of this like art opening like kind of procession, this ritual.
So there'll be kind of like a bully to them.
Well, there's sort of like oh my goodness, we're being inconvenienced now, and there's sort of this awkward, yeah, it's a real thing. And so like I have not exactly anything quite like this or anything like that, but there is like that, and this is like a cliche that happens in movies too, right? Like kind of like where like you're I don't know, the ones lacking cultural capital arrive and then they're kind of like thrown out, and it's kind of like it's not like so there's an extreme like on a comedy end you get kind of like the slobs versus snobs sort of dynamic where that's the emphasis of the whole movie, and then there's sort of this more grounded thing where there's this added anxiety and discomfort for the protagonist because you're kind of at this point along for the ride with these characters who have to kind of go into this space that should be open to everybody because it's literally called an opening, and it's open to the public and anybody should be able to go in to take in some art if they're able to appreciate it in the correct parameters of it. These guys kind of stumble upon it because they're like, oh, this is like an opening, this is interesting, I like art, like you just like are attracted to this thing like that, but then you're immediately met with like either like you start like you see a woman that you're like really attracted to and you go, oh, I'm gonna do something about that. This just seems to be the right place and time to be doing it, and it's just like no, it's not. They're not into that. They're not interested, and then everything starts breaking down unless you respect these sort of boundaries that have been set up, but that you haven't consented to, that you haven't agreed upon, but it's just sort of, this is what it is. This is the nature of how things are. And so when things come along to disrupt it, you're immediately kind of tossed out on your ear, or kind of shuffled off out of the space. Or even if it's not that direct, you kind of are like made to be unwelcomed and kind of, you'll figure it out. We don't even have to do it. We're going to benignly ignore you till you leave, and we don't have to like sully ourselves any further. And then we can roll our eyes and continue our cocktail conversations about, I don't know, quinoa or something like that, right? So it's like I felt like that was just one of those scenes where it's like it's kind of, that's what I felt like that was what that scene was kind of doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you almost see the same thing where they're looking for the guy, what's shirtless and the robe or whatever. They're like going through the registry for the thing, and it's like, is this guy here? Oh, we don't know that guy. Well, where is he? And stuff. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, you got those people like, oh gosh, who the hell are these people? Leave us alone. So yeah. I guess what you're saying. Yeah,
like even in the world that like you're viewed as sort of this inconvenience. And so like that's just like that adds to this like it's just ongoing, and even the people like, oh, I don't know, I get it. I mean, most people want like to feel secure in themselves, and they don't want disruption. They want consistency. This is kind of how we've been.
What was the whole idea of people moving out to the suburbs? I mean, to get rid of the inner city crime, right?
Well, that was one of the tales of like, yeah, it's what is it? White flight, I think, is one of the terms you'll see kind of talked about with that. Yeah, and look at that. Look at it go. It's like
keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, things it's shit. It's all shit. Anyway, continue. That popped into my mind. We mentioned the gallery.
So yeah, curious to hear if you had any takeaway from. Yeah, I'm glad you added that. I didn't even have that perspective, not actually attending those things, but yeah, I can totally imagine those being very unwelcoming and maybe sparking some of the resentment they probably already have being in that kind of crowd. But yeah, the escalator scene, the old guy going down, Hubert is like describing exactly what he's getting out of the situation, and then he marks it by the guy's like, man, you're a racist. So yeah, any takeaway from the escalator?
Jarrett?
Not per se, RJ.
Okay.
I mean, I know in Mallrats there's an escalator scene. I feel like it's not unlike the Haine escalator scene where it's about kids being unsupervised on the escalator. And I think the real thing here to kind of focus on is what is it a metaphor for? Like what is it really trying to say about metaphors? But also just like
Maybe.
I mean, life
Don't judge a
carries.
book by its cover.
Yeah, life finds a way.
Perhaps. Yeah.
King and other things.
But all I had after that was the fact that, we do have the style of like this ticking clock throughout the day, and it intensifies there at the end as, it gets into the final encounter between them and the cops, and accidental gun goes off, and it goes to black. It's about a society in free fall. Yeah, Great movie.
Hooray!
Good stuff. Good times for everybody.
For everyone. How about you, RJ?
Well, I mean, you guys know me on the Criterion Creeps podcast as being the guy who sees the things that other people don't see, and the guy who kind of gets a little bit wild with his political discourse on interpretations. So I mean, what else is new, right? Anyways, Haine, I think it's good. It's a good show. There's some stuff that annoyed me, but it's not about the movie itself. It's more I think I'm getting really old, and when I see youths doing things that I don't agree with, it upsets me. So like, okay, so here's my thing.
That happened to me in Florida Project.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No. Exactly. Okay. Like, I think it's a good movie. It's a well-made movie. I really like what it's like, the point of the movie and all that stuff. I think that's all very well treaded between the two of you guys and just other people too. Like, it's a good show. But I did find it hard to sympathize with the characters sometimes. Like, the only guy I really liked was Hubert. Because I was like, I feel like he's always trying to do the right thing, where Vince and what's the other dude's name?
Saeed.
I was kind of like, these guys are just pricks. Like they're kind of they're the like the teenage or like young early 20s dudes that are just assholes to be assholes. And I was just like, man, fuck these guys, because like, you know what I mean? Like, they just go around like causing trouble. And I know like the point of the movie is that it's like they're getting pushed on, so they like push back. It's like, I understand that, but sometimes they're in a situation where it doesn't call for that, and they're just being kind of dinks for no reason. I was like, dudes, you guys gotta relax, man. Like, why are you being mean to this person? This person never did anything to you. And I know that's again the point, because it's like the cops are being mean to people that they don't know and that have never done anything to them. So I understand all that. But there was something about seeing youths doing things that I was just like, man, if I saw a group of teenagers, they were doing things like this, I'd be like, man, I'd be upset. I wouldn't do anything about it, but I'd sit behind my curtain with like one finger drawn. I'd be like, oh, what are they doing out there? You know what I mean? Just watching them. So, anyways, that's a long way to say that I like the movie, and I know what it's doing. I think it does it well. But there were times in this where I was like, man, I don't like anyone on screen right now. And I know that you don't have to like everybody for a movie, but I kind of thought some of these guys sucked. Anyways, that is whatever. I really like.
Isn't there? We kind of see that Hubert's been to prison, so maybe he's the part of the reason why he's a little bit more down to earth and not willing to shake the boat as much as the others.
I think that's probably part of it. Like, he struck me as a guy who was like a little bit more he was just more mature than the others. Like, he tried to have like a gym for like kids and stuff like that, and he was like genuinely trying to kind of help each other out, where like Saeed all that dude cares about is himself, which I mean, that's the character. He's just kind of like a shitty little dude. He's running around trying to get hot dogs and stuff, and Vince thinks he is better than he actually is, and that's what he keeps kind of telling people. He's like, I'll do this, I'll do that, and you're like, all right, do it.
Was the hot dog scene, was that the rooftop cookout that
Yeah.
the police were like, oh, move along? Okay.
Yeah,
It's
so
like,
that
hot
it's that.
dogs? What are you talking about?
Well, he steals a hot dog and he doesn't pay for it, and then he runs around like a little asshole, and then he like, and the hot dog guy chases him down, and he's just like, you gotta give me a fucking $1 for that hot dog. And he's like, what hot dog? And he's just eating it, and it's like, you little dink, just pay for the fucking hot dog.
He doesn't wanna.
I know he doesn't wanna. I mean, I get it.
Fuck the police.
The state's keeping him down. He's not paying for that fucking hot dog.
I know. I
The man
get
he
it.
gets shot. He gets shot in the head by accident. I mean,
No, not Saeed. That's
Oh.
Vince.
that's Vince. Okay, I've lost
Yeah,
track.
Saeed's the one who's just watching. And
Oh.
you know what? Maybe that wouldn't have happened if you didn't steal that hot dog, Saeed.
Oh, I
How
see.
about
So you're saying it's the hot dog that set all these things in motion.
It's butterfly
Into it.
effect, baby. Because
Yeah.
he stole that hot dog, which created discourse on the roof, which drew the crowds, which caused the police to be there and the undercovers. Because that's another thing. There's those undercover cops all over the place. I think it was the hot dog incident
Wearing
that set
Notre
all
Dame
this.
jackets.
The Notre Dame jackets. I know the movie tries to tell you it's that one kid who was brutally beaten up by the cops and died, which spurred it all. I think it was the hot dog incident because he stole that hot dog, and everything that happened afterwards was bad. And then like I really sympathize with like that dude who they see who's like maybe a smuggler or something, and he's like, man, they burnt my car down, and they're like, yeah, fuck the establishment. And he's like, fuck the establishment, and he's like, this is my car. He's like, fuck you guys, and he kind of tells them to leave, you know. I sympathize with that guy because he's like it was my car, you know. So anyways, I do like I like what the movie's doing. I think it's well done in what it's trying to do. There's a lot of really good screenshots about taking a shit and farts and stuff like that, which I'm also super on board with. Like anytime something like that happens. So I got a lot of good hot dog screenshots. I got a lot of good shit and fart screenshots. I got a good shot about like melees because who doesn't like that? There's some sandwich talk, which I also thought was pretty cool. Talks about what's up some other people's asses. Like, I mean, all around good stuff. But as Jarrett said, like, it's things. It's like, was this movie made today? And it's like, well, you know what? I hear the more things change, the more things stay the same. You know, Jarrett.
Dag nabbit.
And I've also heard that
Some
life
youth of
finds a
today
way.
are calling hot dogs glizzies. So
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Touche.
that's actually one of the youth trends that I actually am I'm on board with. I
Aw.
like glizzy. I think I actually kind of like that.
Is it because it glistens? Is that the idea?
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but have you ever gotten like a hot dog from Sev, and then you know how they have the chili pump? You ever gotten like a Slurpee cup and filled the Slurpee cup up with the chili, and then you dunk the hot dog in the chili cup?
No.
Are you gonna tomorrow?
No.
Maybe. Why? What are you having for lunch tomorrow?
Well, I'm going to dine on the who hates comments left for this film.
Mm-hmm.
From GG Love Hotel, half a star. Vincent Cassell acts so badly. I didn't like the film. I found it slow and without interest, whereas the film had a good story and a good potential, but it prefers to show people living in a poor neighborhood as very caricatural and too exaggerated. It made me many times uncomfortable. Several times I felt like the director and writers never went to a poor neighborhood and made a story out of caricatures of what they thought was reality.
This person likes the Twilight movies.
Okay.
They don't really have they only have 99 films logged.
Well,
So
look, people, the movies, the movies, sometimes they're movies.
the movie films,
The movie pictures.
the movie pictures.
I don't know.
All right. Well, what else we got?
Okay. We've got, this might be on the second page if I remember, but there's Da Rock,
Dot Rock. Okay.
half a star, 2 words, incel movie.
incel movie.
Yeah.
That's kind of incredible. There's also I don't want to jump the gun. Da Rock likes Train Spotting, Purple Rain, Vertigo, and Zero Day. So we got that going for us. But do you have Poopy Ploppies review?
Nope.
The Pain. Half a star.
Oh.
There's a Criterion boy. Lots of Criterion films that they like. I thought that was kind of funny.
One more. Half a star for Muscle Man 420.
Ooh.
So cringe. Script was either written by a 15-year-old dumbass or a 50-year-old who's concerned about the youth. Embarrassingly indulgent direction that falls totally flat. Hollyoaks acting. I don't know what that one is. Hollyoaks.
Like Holland Oates acting? Is that what you mean?
Hollyoaks, as opposed to Hollywood. Hollyoaks.
That's nothing. That's a made-up thing. Whatever they say.
And then Muscle Man 420 concludes, basically unwatchable.
Cool. Muscle Man 420, 5-star Gummo.
Fuck yeah. I'm on board with that. I mean, I think Gummo is a big statement. It's
what do you thought?
It's
what did they
the
think of Acting
statement.
Maximus?
What's that?
But what did they think about Acting Maximus?
That's a good question.
I suspect
I
they
think we'll
might
ever
not
know.
they might not be familiar with it yet until they listen to this show.
Yet.
To send them a coupon code in their comments so they can watch it for free.
There you go. Coupon. Yeah, I don't know. How about those youths? Are you concerned, RJ?
I've never not been concerned about the use. Like, that's what I've been trying to say for a long time. Somebody's got to watch these fucking kids.
Yeah,
It's not going to be me.
I don't know. There is always that criticism you could lob at any of these types of movies.
But the
about,
use.
Well, this is like one of my all-time favorite movies, as everybody knows, of course, is a little film called Crash, and it's sort of like
Vegas.
so you're gonna make a movie about this, are ya? And now there's like different roads that can happen here. It's like you make a movie, and it could become like an impetus for societal change. That's sort of this wish that some filmmakers and art makers have, that they will create something and something will come of it because it'll expose some sort of truth that will get people thinking and acting and doing something, or become sort of like this relic in different ways, or like this movie that it continues to exist and continues to depict sort of a state of miserableness that like nothing changes, and you're like, oh, this is like a document rather than like sort of an art piece. So that's great. But I don't know. But yeah, we'll see.
What is art?
Well, it's all. I mean, what are you saying about it? Isn't that what makes it great, RJ? That it's not real? Isn't that actually the most appealing part of art, is that it isn't real? Because reality sucks. All we have maybe is art because it's not real.
Some have said nothing.
Some say reality bites.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ben Stiller.
Well, yeah. I mean, life finds a way. Am I right, boys?
Any final thoughts on La Haine?
Them kids, get out of here. That's me.
That's you.
Best there was, best there is, and the best there ever will be.
Wow. Huge.
Heartbreaking.
Oh, sexy. All right.
After the break, we can't see RJ. He's just darkness, but there's gonna be a big zoom in on his eyes.
Black hole.
Intensely, as he looks at Craigbot saying, "Why did you fail me tonight, Craigbot? Why?"
It's a good question.
And then shots fired. Black.